The movie starts with one of my favorite types of dramatic openings. Hutch sitting calmly in a police station while the room around him looks like the aftermath of a tornado, while not a single cop there actually knows who. He has gone through countless interrogations, yet nobody can pin down this man's true identity or understand what kind of person they are dealing with. We then see that Hutch has been trying to live a quiet, almost ordinary life, forcing himself to move through each day like a regular family man. Even so, he keeps throwing himself back into the same lethal line of work, keeping it a secret from everyone around him, especially his wife Becca, who waits for him every night at the dinner table. While Hutch is out there tearing through all sorts of criminals, it becomes obvious that his marriage is falling apart because he is never fully present. Early one morning, just as the day is starting at home, Hutch says goodbye to his kids before they leave for school. He manages to catch Sammy before she goes, and tells Becca he slept in the basement so he would not wake her during the night. They try to talk briefly about how things have been going between them, but she clearly has to rush out. Right before leaving, she notices dried blood on his face and decides not to kiss him goodbye. After she steps out, Hutch goes to take out the trash, only for Becca to call him back and remind him that vacation season is about to begin. Hutch brings up the idea of a family trip, even though he still has no clear idea where they should go. He promises to think of a destination during the day so they can discuss it that night over dinner. Later that day, Hutch is at the barber's, telling him about his most recent mission. He had to steal an important access card from a group of Asian men staying in a hotel. Hutch shadowed them, waited for the perfect chance, and cornered them inside an elevator to pull off a quick, quiet theft. Instead, the situation went sideways immediately, and the simple robbery turned into a brutal close-quarters fight, with blood everywhere. As usual, Hutch showed no hesitation confronting armed men with nothing but his bare hands. When he thought things were finally under control, another armed crew, chasing the same objective, appeared in the hotel kitchen and opened fire. To shake them off, Hutch threw a gas canister to wipe each other out. Trying to escape through the parking lot, he discovered yet another gang also after the same card, and he was forced to neutralize that group as well. In the end, all the violence paid off because the card turned out to be extremely valuable. Even after that, Hutch still owes a massive debt to the Russians, which means his missions are far from finished. Deep down, he feels he cannot keep living like this, but the barber reminds him that those same people cleared the debt he created when he burned all of the Russians' money, so he has no choice but to continue. Hutch is clearly nearing a breaking point and is starting to believe that what he really needs is a proper vacation. The barber understands the idea but points out that walking away will not be easy, because this job has already become part of who Hutch is. Hutch remembers that, after taking down the last thugs in the parking lot, he noticed an ad for a tourist spot called Plummerville. Memories of going there with his family as a kid come flooding back, and he decides that as soon as he can, he will suggest it to Becca and the kids as the perfect place for a peaceful, unforgettable family holiday. He explains they could enjoy the hotel, the water park, the fair, and all sorts of attractions the kids have never experienced. He even proposes inviting Grandpa to make it a real family trip. At that moment, he notices a bruise around Brady's eye and asks what happened, and the boy claims it came from a rough soccer match. Persuaded, the family agrees to go on the trip. The next day, they pick up Grandpa, and before he gets into the car, they ask him to put out his cigarette. With that, the road journey begins, with the family trying to reconnect through music, games, and small conversations until they finally arrive at Plummerville. Once there, they show the kids the hotel room they will share, but neither of them seems enthusiastic about the arrangement. In a conciliatory gesture, Grandpa gives his room to Brady so Sammy can sleep alone, and he goes to rest in an old cabin. Hutch and Becca will be staying in a suite, a flashy but odd room that bothers Becca because of the heavy smell of cigarette smoke. She decides to ignore it and make an effort for the sake of the vacation. Just as Hutch and Becca are about to get intimate in the suite, Sammy interrupts them, and they instead decide to walk around and explore. The water park looks impressive at first glance, but they find out it is closed due to an incident. As compensation, they receive a discount on hot dogs and head to a diner for a family meal. While waiting for their food, Hutch drifts into memories of the good times he once spent there with his own family. By chance, his eyes fall on a nearby table where a sheriff is sitting. The sheriff notices Hutch staring, stands up, and approaches in an attempt to intimidate him, asking what his problem is. Hutch quickly apologizes and lets it go. Soon after, he picks up their food and brings it back to the table, choosing to ignore the run-in with the sheriff. That night, the family goes to an arcade to enjoy the attractions and carnival games. Hutch feels it is a good moment to ask Brady what truly happened to his eye. Brady admits the bruise did not come from soccer, then gets annoyed as his father pushes for more details. Realizing it is not the right time or place to talk, Hutch backs off and goes over to Becca. Left on his own, Brady notices a group of girls looking at him. To get their attention, he gives them the tickets he just won, and he also hands a handful to his sister so she will not complain. One of the girls' boyfriends, angry and jealous, storms over and demands an apology, convinced Brady was flirting with his girlfriend. Brady refuses to apologize for something so petty. When Sammy comes over wanting to leave, the jealous guy grabs her stuffed toy and tears it apart in front of her. Brady reacts instantly and punches him, drawing a crowd as the commotion grows. Hutch then realizes his son is in the middle of a fight. The fair's security steps in and breaks them apart, but the guard assumes Brady started the trouble and orders him to leave. As the guard lectures him, the other kid tries to swing a baseball bat at Brady, but Hutch steps in and blocks it at the last second. Hutch wants to defuse things, but the guard refuses to listen and insists they get out. Hutch agrees to leave with his family to avoid making it worse, until he sees the guard put his hands on Sammy. He immediately pulls his family outside, then heads back in alone under the excuse of having forgotten his phone. Once inside, he brutally beats the guard who touched his daughter and attacks anyone else who tries to interfere, using whatever objects he can find as weapons. When his family sees the aftermath, they realize Hutch has dragged them into deep trouble. A couple of hours later, the family is sitting in a police station. Both Hutch and Brady are being held after the incident at the fair, and the atmosphere is tense. While Becca tries to calm the situation with the officers, Hutch talks to Brady and tells him there are better ways to deal with conflict. Brady fires back that it is hypocritical for his father to talk about peaceful solutions when he just fought multiple men in public. Hutch tries to explain that he wants Brady to learn to handle things better than he ever has. Suddenly, heavy banging is heard, and the sheriff Hutch had seen at the diner drags him into a back office that is clearly not a standard interrogation room. There, Hutch meets Wyatt Martin, who introduces himself as the real power in town and, not coincidentally, the father of the boy Brady fought at the fair. Wyatt is furious about what happened, especially because Brady seriously injured his son's pitching arm, which matters a lot since the boy is a ball player. Hutch attempts to cool things off, saying he will have Brady apologize, but he also points out that Wyatt's son started the fight, and that the guard laid hands on his daughter. After some back and forth, Wyatt agrees to let them go, but only on the condition that they leave town as soon as possible. However, once Hutch is gone, the sheriff quietly orders one of his men to make sure the family disappears. Regardless of Wyatt's earlier decision, the family returns to the hotel under a heavy cloud. In the room, Becca confronts Hutch for letting his worst side surface in the middle of the trip that was supposed to be about rest and reconnection. She blames him for Brady's violent tendencies and demands to know what he has been hiding in the bag he refuses to open, suspecting it might be full of weapons or tools of his trade. When she finally opens the bag, Becca finds not guns, but a bottle of wine that carries a special meaning for them as a couple, showing that Hutch genuinely wanted to enjoy a real family vacation. Realizing this, she lets go of her accusations. They spend the night drinking, talking, and patching up their marriage. The following day, the whole family goes out again to enjoy their time together. They laugh, play, and build warm memories, while Grandpa relaxes at the old cabin. Everything seems to be going well until Hutch notices one of the officers taking photos of them from a distance. He soon understands they have been followed all day. He quickly comes up with a reason to lead his family away from danger while he goes to confront the threat alone. He boards another boat, where the sheriff and his accomplices corner him. Because they are in a public place, They wait until the crowd is distracted before speaking openly. They remind Hutch he was told to leave and make it clear they do not care about his family plans. When they move in on him, Hutch responds immediately, unleashing his combat skills and taking them down one by one, tossing some overboard and knocking others out with vicious strikes. Despite the chaos, the other passengers remain oblivious to what is happening just a few feet away. When Hutch tries to end the confrontation with words, the sheriff suddenly tries to stab him. In the struggle, they manage to throw Hutch overboard and assume he will drown. The sheriff celebrates, annoyed that this supposedly normal tourist gave them so much trouble in the first place. At that moment, Hutch pulls himself back onto the boat, wounded but refusing to give up. He charges the group without hesitation, dropping the sheriff with a single punch and then finishing off the rest in savage fashion, still without the passengers noticing the carnage. Finally, he lifts the sheriff off the floor and beats him mercilessly. The scene cuts, and we next see Hutch back on land with a bandaged finger. He contacts his brother Harry and tells him he has come to Plummerville for a family vacation, but wants to know why the town feels so different. Harry explains that the area is an old smuggling route and that their father brought them there only once because he was on a mission. In this territory, the mob controls the police, and they are not going to tolerate someone like Hutch meddling in their affairs. Meanwhile, Wyatt and the corrupt sheriff meet in a warehouse filled with stacks of cash and a highly dangerous shipment they are preparing to send out. The sheriff who clashed with Hutch reports what happened on the boat and admits he doubts Hutch is simply an average tourist. Elsewhere, the barber gets a call from Hutch, who says he is in serious trouble and asks if he remembers Plummerville. The barber immediately recognizes the trade route and tells Hutch that many organizations operate there, but one person truly rules everything: Landina. She is described as razor-sharp, extremely dangerous, and in total control of the entire territory. The barber knows what she is capable of: a ruthless woman who has no compassion and even finds enjoyment in other people's pain. At that moment, Landina is shown causing havoc in her own casino after discovering that a supposed jackpot winner has been cheating. Fully aware of what she represents, the barber warns Hutch to stay far away from her. Hutch, stubborn as ever, insists on knowing where he can find her. Reluctantly, the barber gives him the location but sets one firm condition: Hutch must keep him out of it, because Landina would not hesitate to eliminate anyone connected to whoever crosses her. Meanwhile, Wyatt spends time with his injured son, checking on the progress of his arm's recovery, when he gets an unexpected call from Landina, his former partner in crime. The conversation quickly darkens as she reminds him of the debt he still owes her. Although Wyatt promises to pay everything soon, she laughs and tells him he will never truly be free of that debt. She then openly threatens to wipe him out, accusing him of losing sight of the real objective, just like his father once did. The remark shakes Wyatt badly. After the call, Landina contacts the sheriff and orders him to visit Wyatt and remind him who he really serves. She also demands he take away something Wyatt truly values as punishment. While this is happening, the Mantle family tries to keep their spirits high and enjoy the vacation, though Hutch's absence becomes increasingly noticeable. When there is a knock at the cabin door, Becca braces for bad news, but it is only Grandpa, whose arrival calms things briefly. Before long, it is revealed that the sheriff, under Landina's orders, has kidnapped Wyatt's son. At the same time, Hutch tracks down the address he has been searching for and reaches the warehouse where piles of cash are stored. With absolute resolve, Hutch begins soaking the money with gasoline, fully aware that there are barrels of explosives stacked behind him. He knows this fortune belongs to Landina, and that destroying it would deal her a devastating blow. His message is simple and direct. He wants them to leave his family alone and let him enjoy the vacation in peace. The sheriff responds with mockery, pointing out that Hutch has already sent several of his men to the hospital and is clearly not a simple family man. He complains that everything was quiet before Hutch arrived and admits that even though he is in a good mood and doesn't truly feel like killing anyone today, Hutch turns and starts to leave, but then hears the sliding door of a minivan open and sees Wyatt's kidnapped son being pulled out of the back. Even then, Hutch initially continues toward his truck, thinking this is not his problem. At the last second, He changes his mind and charges back into the warehouse, determined to rescue the boy. He launches himself at the armed guards, punching his way through them despite the number of guns and magazines they carry. Some of the men panic and scatter, while the boy, still gagged and tied up, watches in horror from above as Hutch takes everyone down with his bare hands. Hutch suffers cuts and bruises in the process, and at one point, the attackers try to use a buzz saw on him. He turns it against them and uses the same saw to finish the last opponent. He then moves to free Wyatt's son, but the sheriff steps in to block him. When the sheriff tries to fire, he realizes he is out of bullets. Instead of rushing him, Hutch shoots out the lamps hanging above the stacks of cash, showering the gasoline-soaked bundles with sparks. The money ignites instantly. The flames are racing across the floor toward leaking explosive barrels. The resulting blast destroys the entire warehouse in a massive fireball. Later, Lendina's crew learns that their whole operation there has been wiped out. Watching the security footage, they identify who did it, but no one recognizes Hutch. All they can see is that he appears to be a tourist on vacation with his family. The news sends Lendina into a fury. She soon receives a call from the sheriff, who has somehow survived the explosion. She demands every bit of information he has on this man, but he can only tell her that the tourist's family is still staying at the hotel and suggests sending more men to eliminate them. Anticipating exactly this threat, Grandpa has already moved the family out to the old cabin in the woods. Hutch arrives there with Max, Wyatt's son, who finally reconciles with Brady. Hutch tells his father he would like to stay, but he still has unfinished business hanging over him. Seeing the state of the car, the old man understands and agrees to take Sammy home, keeping her away from the chaos. Hutch knows he now has to face a very difficult conversation with Becca. She reminds him he promised to keep the danger far from them, and that everything that has happened means he broke that promise. Hutch admits that he cannot always control his impulses, that his violent side is part of his nature, and confesses that maybe the safest thing is for his family to stay away from him. After that, he goes to see Wyatt, who is anxious because Max is not answering his phone and is slightly drunk. When he hears the boy is with Hutch, he briefly suspects Hutch might have taken him hostage. Once they clear up the misunderstanding, both men calm down. Hutch explains what he did at Lendina's warehouse, burning all of the cash and blowing the place apart using the explosives. Wyatt knows this will bring serious consequences, but feels relief that his son is alive. He expresses his hatred for Lendina, recalling that she is the one who had his father killed and has now endangered his own child, which he cannot forgive. Wyatt explains that his father's criminal empire passed down to him buried in debt to Lendina, debts he has been forced to pay, but he swears he is determined to keep Max away from the business. He warns Hutch that she is probably already on her way. Meanwhile, Lendina prepares to collect what she believes she is owed. She gathers her dog and a squad of heavily armed, well-trained men with a single mission: wipe Hutch out completely. Wyatt tells Hutch that his father once planned to eliminate Lendina, but she struck first. In preparation, the old man had built up a massive arsenal that was never used against her. Now, with all that firepower at their disposal, Hutch and Wyatt decide to lure her into the most dangerous possible location: the town's fairgrounds, which they quickly clear of civilians. Once the grounds are empty, Hutch meets up with Harry, and with Grandpa's help they turn the entire place into a death trap. As part of the plan, Hutch even releases the so-called wild animal from the park, while everyone else gets ready for a final confrontation with the crime boss who has been controlling Plummerville. They place explosives everywhere: bombs, grenades, mines, and an assortment of weapons spread strategically across the fair. When everything is set, the family briefly gathers and, in the calm before the storm, they share memories of the time Grandpa first took them to Plummerville. Hutch cannot shake the thought of whether his father already knew what his children would become. He worries about the path Brady might take, but Grandpa, with the wisdom of age, reassures him that Brady will grow into a better man than Hutch. Soon, Lendina and her crew approach the fairgrounds. She is told that Hutch and Wyatt are allegedly hiding in the water park, while the tourist family is supposedly holed up in a cabin deep in the woods. Without hesitation, Lendina orders a team to go to the cabin and wipe out everyone there, leaving no witnesses. At the cabin, Becca waits on edge until she notices a weapon hanging on the wall. Feeling in her gut that danger is closing in, she takes the weapon and steps outside. Night falls as both sides finally face each other at the park entrance. The sheriff steps forward, full of false bravado, and declares that he is now in charge. He offers Hutch and Wyatt two options: lay down their weapons and leave with Lendina, or face the consequences. No one is intimidated. When his bluff fails, the sheriff tries to back away toward Lendina, but she coldly orders his execution, discarding him as useless. Gunfire erupts immediately as Lendina's men charge into the fairgrounds. Hutch and his allies detonate the explosives planted ahead of time, triggering grenades buried in the ground and instantly slowing their attackers. Hutch moves to another attraction and turns it into a deadly trap, using it to dispatch enemies without always relying on guns. The open layout of the fair allows them to confuse their opponents and push them into carefully arranged ambushes. Even the dog joins the fight, helping keep Hutch from being pulled under by the sheer number of attackers. The battle takes its toll. Wyatt is hit in the leg and badly wounded, but he manages to retreat while luring some of Lendina's men into yet another trap. Their plan has been executed with almost surgical precision, turning every corner of the fair into a weapon against the attackers. However, as time passes, the family begins to feel that despite their planning, control is slipping away and victory is no longer guaranteed. At the same time, Lendina's men storm the cabin with orders to kill everyone inside. They do not expect Harry to be waiting, first armed with knives and then with a katana, cutting down anyone who tries to reach the children. Even so, one soldier sneaks into the cabin and raises his gun at Max and Sammy. Brady throws himself at the intruder, determined to protect his sister no matter what. Outside, Harry lands a devastating strike that not only shatters the weapon aimed at him, but also eliminates the threat beyond the cabin walls. Inside, Brady manages to overpower the attacker and save his siblings. Back at the fairgrounds, Wyatt is lying on the ground in agony from his leg wound. Hutch, torn between concern for his friend and the need to finish the fight, hands Wyatt a gun so he can defend himself if necessary, then runs off to find his father. Instead of Harry, Hutch runs straight into Lendina, who has been waiting to confront him. With icy confidence, she sends two of her bodyguards at him. Hutch dodges and blocks their attacks, but holds back from hitting them as hard as he can because they are women, which puts him at a disadvantage. Lendina keeps taunting him, promising that her organization will survive anything and that people like him always lose everything when they interfere. She finally orders her guards to kill him. Before they can do so, Wyatt, using the last of his strength and the few bullets left, shoots both women, leaving Lendina alone. Enraged, Lendina tackles Wyatt and prepares to kill him. Just as she is about to finish Hutch too, Becca appears and shoots a tranquilizer dart into Lendina's chest, then fires another into her face, knocking her out. Hutch and Becca reunite, but there is no time to celebrate as Lendina's remaining men move in. Grandpa, seeing that the moment has come, shouts that he is about to blow the place to pieces. In the last possible instant, everyone dives into a nearby pool. They sink under the surface as a massive explosion tears through the fairgrounds, reducing everything to rubble. The story then circles back to the opening in the police station. It is revealed that Hutch was not only sitting there with the dog, but also with Becca as the officers interrogated them. One cop receives a phone call from higher up ordering their immediate release, regardless of the number of bodies or the amount of evidence that could have put Hutch behind bars. In the end, Hutch and his family finally enjoy a quiet night back home. They sit together and look through photos from the vacation they were forced to live through, after all the chaos and destruction. For the first time in a long while, they share a genuinely peaceful moment.